Welcome to the Six Hats podcast, where I, Dr. Shami, a lifestyle and nutritional medicine family doctor, will talk about how women strive to find balance each day by juggling their six roles, being a woman, mother, daughter, partner, business owner, and professional. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Six Hats podcast. And today I'm so excited to have Dr. Rani Bora join us. Now, she is quite unique. She is a holistic psychiatrist, also a speaker, and the author of How to Turn Stress on Its Head. And what I love about Rani, and I'm really excited when we dive into this conversation, is that she has studied and trained in several integrative well-being and coaching approaches. Now, she's a strong advocate for patient empowerment, peer support, and the personal recovery movement in mental health. She integrates her coaching expertise into her psychiatric practice, offering a unique blend of clinical insight and the paradigm of the three principles, which we've heard about in the Six Hats series. Now, her contributions to mental health include writing self-help booklets for patients on various aspects of well-being. And one example is called Coaching for Recovery for Rethink Mental Illness, a leading mental health charity based in the UK. So she's a holistic psychiatrist. She also works with deprescribing interventions and both individual and group coaching programs. Now, she's taking a stand to spread the paradigm of the three principles, what she refers to as mental wealth within the health industry and beyond. Thank you, Rani.
Oh, Shami, thank you so much for inviting me to your podcast. I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
Absolutely. So, Rani, let's start where psychiatry is in the world. And from my perspective as a GP that was trained in the UK now for 24 years, and in the first 10 years of my practice, I felt like I was a robot and I didn't even question it. So when patients come in 5 to 10 minutes and they were going through life hardships, it's incredible how we literally went to, here's an antidepressant. And I never questioned it. And when I look at it now, I go, how could I possibly have consulted that way when I know that antidepressant is not going to solve their financial issues, their relationship issues. It's literally going to numb them. And at that time, I wasn't aware of the serious side effects of antidepressants. It's so scary to think about how quickly it's dispensed. And now, 24 years later, 10 years into integrative lifestyle medicine, so the other side of the spectrum, where patients are desperately trying to come off them, going through so many withdrawal effects, struggling, almost thinking, why didn't anyone tell me about this? But at the same time, I'm diving deeper and realizing how patients can actually get better with lifestyle and diet and nutrients and looking at other aspects. So, Rani, how have you come to the point of looking at psychiatry holistically?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. And you have summed my own, what I have seen, my own insights and when working in the field of psychiatry. But let's get back to the definition of the word, like where did the word psychiatry come from and what does it mean? And it seems to say a very ancient word, and the meaning is medicine for the soul.
Okay. Oh, wow.
I remember a long time ago, I was on Twitter and the psychiatrist tweeted, like, I didn't know I'm a psychiatrist and all psychiatry means medicine for the soul. So we are doing some amazing work. And my response was, okay, if this is what psychiatry is, what's the best medicine for the soul? And I want people to just slow down and hear this. What's the best medicine for the soul? That's where the word psychiatry came from. So it's a very pure word. It's clearly saying that we can't just focus on mind and body and keep the spirit part or the soul part separate. It's mind, body, and spirit. And so what I see missing in psychiatry is that we're focusing too much on the mind. And when I say mind, we're focusing on the personal mind. When we're focusing on the personal mind, we think the personal mind is in the brain. So we are looking for things in the brain. And obviously, as you know, as a GP, and a medic, that there are some organic causes, and organic psychiatry is in old age psychiatry, where we can see the effects of dementia, for example, in a brain scan. Otherwise, just like you and me know, there are symptoms we focus on, and a cluster of symptoms makes a disorder. So where do we help with the spirit or the soul? And that to me is missing in psychiatry. And one can say, well, okay, we know that antidepressants have problems now because guess what? There are now more and more evidence is coming out. And so even mainstream has to say, well, we know it's not the best and it saves lives. And we know that let's not go into the debate of whether it saves lives or not. And there are also other innovative practices in psychiatry, people will say, like, for example, the latest one is psychedelics. And everyone is saying, oh, this is amazing. This is really promising. And even when the SSRIs came out, that was very, very promising. And so with time, we realized that what was promising in the beginning really is not sustainable. There are some short-term benefits and then something else happens. And where psychiatry is heading is like, don't get me wrong, I think most of the people who practice psychiatry, they want to do good. They see people suffering and they really want to serve and they want to do good, but they are coming from a place of misunderstanding. Why? Again, it's not the problem, it's how our training has been designed. I didn't know any of this. You didn't know any of this. We had our own journey. We had our own exploration. We had our own insights. And when we went beyond what they have traditionally taught us to look at the critical aspects, then we realized that this doesn't make sense at all. And so when we have inquisitive mind and get curious and are not scared of stepping out of that comfort zone of this is how you're supposed to treat, because you think something is not right. I have been treating my patients with antidepressants, with antipsychotics, and all this cocktail of medications. Why are they not getting any better? And so if you want to be a holistic practitioner, you need to be open. You need to be able to question. You can't just fit into a box. So my story is that I really wanted to bring this understanding into mainstream, and I did my best. And it was better, or it was easier when I was in a community setting. You meet up with a team, but you don't have the same dynamics as an inpatient setting. And in inpatient setting, sometimes it's very, very traditional. We do it this way. We are all together and this is evidence-based. You can't do this. You can't do that. And when I was an inpatient psychiatrist and I first came across the true principles, I struggled and people struggled to get me. And obviously there were lots of challenges. Anyway, I gave that up. I went private, came back and again to the NHS in the community. That was so much better. And because I could then share my understanding and also really take time to share what I call take informed consent. Because one of the things is missing in psychiatry is, okay, we can be very, very prescriptive. We assume that what we are doing is good. We are really not taking informed consent. When I say informed consent, it's not just saying, oh, you might get a bit of restlessness or agitation, or it might take about 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks or 4 weeks for the antidepressants to work. That's not informed consent. If you really want to take informed consent, really look at the latest evidence base and really look at all the side effects, including the side effects we don't talk about, which are more common than we think. Sexual dysfunction, for example, and agitation, even in suicidal thoughts. We don't talk about that. We assume we have taken informed consent. So there's a lot can be improved in psychiatry. And although we have more time than GPs, you have 10 minutes, we have got an hour a patient, we are focusing so much on the presenting complaint, the history of presenting illness and family history, all the traditional way that we don't spend enough time asking the patient and us slowing down so that we can prescribe the medication the next time once we really have given them all the alternatives. And that's what GMC says. Yes, informed consent. So something there, there's a lot there. I can go on and on, but what are you hearing here, Shami?
I'm loving the fact that you said informed consent. And I'm also going, oh my God, that was me. That was me 15 years ago. That's literally that was my narrative when you're giving antidepressants. And what I'm hearing till this day, and I often hear patient stories, but also just in socializing, where they go, oh, I had a difficult period. The first thing my GP offered was an antidepressant. That's it. But then they go, well, I actually didn't take it and I chose not to take it. And guess what? I did get better over time. I sought the support that I needed and I did eventually get better. So you're absolutely right. I'm almost just gobsmacked how we don't really give informed consent. And you're right about that sexual dysfunction and also protracted withdrawal syndrome, how hard it is to come off an antidepressants. And it's meant to be short term. And I'm still hearing the narrative, once you're on it for life. I'm still hearing that. And it's wrong. It's so wrong. The body is not designed to be on meds for life for certain conditions at all. And I honestly believe in some conditions of depression, anxiety, which we're going to go into, it's because of life's hardships and it's transient. And we haven't really got the skills of how to process it. And we're turning to a drug as a solution.
And guess what? If the person had taken antidepressants, the doctor, and they would have assumed that, oh, I'm feeling better because I'm on the medication. I had this conversation so many times because I give people other options and they go on and do something else. Then they come back and say, actually, I'm feeling better. And I said, see, if I had given you a prescription of antidepressants, you would have thought, oh, the antidepressant really works. This is why I'm feeling better. And we assume that it's not about the inner work they have done and things they have shifted in their life that has made a difference, but we assume that this is a chemical that has a power to change their lives.
Absolutely. This is a great time, Rani, to actually move on to the 3 principles. I'd love for you to start right at the basics because not many people are familiar with it. And then we'll go down that road.
So what I want people to hear is that it's a metaphor. It's a metaphor of how life works. Don't get hung up on, oh, what are the 3 principles? I have to go and read about the principles. What is mind? Oh, maybe this is what mind is. What is consciousness? What is thought? Oh, I'm thinking that must be thought. So we can get really just hung up about the metaphor and try to make sense because that's what happened to me the first time I came across it. What's the principles? It sounds a bit like a cocktail of mindfulness and CBT. That's what I thought. I was very skeptical. What I'm seeing more and more is a simplicity. All it's doing is pointing to how life works. Life always works from the inside out, meaning that any experience we have is all generated from within. But it looks like the outside world, our past, other people have influence over us. That's the outside in. Oh, I get triggered when this happens. I was doing okay, and so then mentions this, and I just snap. And it feels like we are at the mercy of the outside world. And that's innocent because that's how the mind works. The mind plays tricks on us. What the 3 principles understanding reminds us that actually every experience we have is generated within. And that's good news because there could be 2 stances we take in life. One is the victim stance. Oh, poor me. Oh, I can't do much because I am broke or I have a relationship problem or this happened in the past. I had so much trauma. I can't move forward until I have had therapy. I have therapy for 2 years, 3 years, 10 years. We have all these assumptions. But the more we know that, yes, things happen to us, life is a context sport, like Sydney Banks says. We play this game of life and we do get hurt, but our experiences are generated from within. So I'll give you a metaphor of thought as a mystical paintbrush. And this is what Sydney Banks used to say. He talks about thought as a mystical paintbrush. And we are using the paintbrush to create our personal reality. And the paint we use is paint of mind and consciousness. And we have this blank canvas and we start painting a picture and we paint a really, like, it seems real, this picture. And we go about life believing that picture. And we feel like a victim, like, oh my goodness, look what happened to me. This is a horrible picture. The beauty, the gift we have been given, this 3 principles gift we have been given is the moment we notice that we are the ones painting this picture that we don't even like, we can put the paintbrush down or we can erase the picture we have painted and start painting a new picture. This is so hopeful. So we have got this beautiful gift that we don't even realize, and I call it mental wealth. So the whole world is talking about mental health. And when we say mental health, we don't mean like well-being. Well-being is in the mix, don't get me wrong, of mental health, but we're also putting severe mental illness, stress and anxiety. Do this, do that for your mental health. It's like outside in, outside in, outside in. And when I say mental wealth, I'm pointing to this mystical paintbrush. Thought is a mystical paintbrush. Thought, not as in our thinking, but as a spiritual gift, is a spiritual energy of thought, I would call it. So I call it mental wealth. We all have our own wealth And of course, we can possess lots of wealth from outside, but the internal, the inner resources we have got, this inner wealth we have got, makes us all wealthy from inside out. We are already rich. And when anyone wakes up to their richness, their wealth, anything is possible.
I love that. Oh my God, I totally resonate with what you said. Because how often do we go about life going, I can't believe that person said that. Can't believe that person has done that to me. And then you kind of go, well, we have actually no control. Got no control of someone else's actions and thoughts and ideas and how they communicate. But we're at a mercy to them. We've literally given the power away to someone else to dictate how we feel. And it's so true, because even if it's something simple, like over the weekend, my friend mentioned that she put an Instagram post up and someone made a sort of a not a great comment about her, and that affected her. And then we create this story in our mind of maybe we're not meant to do that, maybe we're not meant to go down that journey, and all of a sudden she's taking a different trajectory. And I go, it's incredible how it's easy to sit back and allow people to dictate who you are, what you're doing, how you're meant to lead life. And it's really interesting, isn't it, Rani? Like, is that because do we grow up seeking validation, seeking our belonging, seeking our place in the world? Hence, we're always seeking what other people are thinking about us. And then we suddenly realize, actually, like what you said, it's how we paint up, how we decide to paint the painting.
I think yes and no, because there's a lot of conditioning, isn't it? Oh, be good and respect people and do this, do that. We have got a lot of rules for living. We have got our own personal rules for living, and we also have societal rules for living in this world of form. So we go about being a people pleaser. We go about wanting to do good, but also like very sensitive to what we call criticism. And we all do that. All it means is we are 100% of the time, we are feeling or thinking in the moment. That's all it is. And no one has taught us this. No one has taught our parents this, so that when we were young, they would say, oh, Rani, don't worry about this. You're feeling the thinking in the moment. No one tells us. It's like generation after generation. Everyone has been caught up in this. So no one has been able to pass on the wisdom. Like, okay, there will be times when we compare ourselves and we try to just fit into society, but it's a thinking. It's really like you are meant to be feeling your thinking. It doesn't work any other way. And so allow yourself. It's not like, oh, I should not be feeling my thinking. No, you can't help it. You cannot not feel your thinking. But rather than getting upset about, oh no, I did it again. I'm seeking validation again. Oh, I'm so stupid. Well, what if we can be kinder to ourselves? Say, well, I'm designed that way as a human to feel my thinking, and it's okay. What then happens is when we give ourselves the permission to slip or to not see it, and to get upset, because I still do it. I don't know whether you do it, Shami, but sometimes like, oh God, they just said that to me, and I really believe it in that moment. But what's the good news is, once you see this, you don't stay in that for me, like a victim stance for long. Maybe in the past, you might have, that might have spoiled the whole day for you, or 2 days for you. Like, I can't believe that they left this Instagram message for me. How dare they? And we could be fuming. But once you see the innocence in you, that you might just realize that it might be there for maybe an hour, maybe half an hour, maybe it comes and goes. But there's something very freeing in really understanding how life works. I love it.
I love that. Love that. This is a great time to sort of, if you can, is there a story that you can share how maybe a patient comes in seeking support, help, whether it is medication or not, and how they apply the 3 principles?
The first thing I would say, if I may, is it is hard to apply the principles. And I know that's not how we mean it, but it's hard to apply because most people are saying, right, let me apply the principles. What should I do? And so I think it's an understanding. It just chips away your misunderstanding, let me put it that way. But I'll give you an example of someone who came to me when I was in the NHS, and she was on a lot of cocktail of medications, and she wanted to tweak her medications. Medication review. You might have come across something called medication review, like, okay, doctor, my medications are no longer working. What can I do? She was on a cocktail of medications. She had put on weight and all the side effects you can think of. And that was my first encounter with her. And she also had bereavement. This is what I know I used to, and I would still do it because it's not this is how I do it, step one, step two, step three, but it made sense for me. So for first thing I do is I really listen to people, and then I offer them some education around what the medications can do, can't do, the side effects, and some things people think that it might just be it's a symptom of my illness. This is a symptom of my illness. Actually, did you even consider that what you're thinking is a symptom of your illness is actually a side effect of the medications you are on? So that's my first education to people. And then people say, oh, I didn't know that. No one ever told me that before. But I said, every time you come and your medication is increased, are you feeling better and better and better? They say, no, maybe little bit. And then I don't feel any better. I feel worse. So when people reflect, then they realize, oh, yes, something is not making sense. And what I would do is, with their permission, I would say, let's try a bit of reduction. I might say 10% reduction just to see how they're going. And without saying, I'm going to take you off the medications, everything, it's an invitation because too much, if you have too many side effects as well, and you are really struggling with your cognitive process, even if I were to share wisdom, you might not be able to hear it because you are still having a lot of trouble with the side effects. So alongside that, I would also invite them. I would ask them to read a book. And so this lady, I said, like, it is an invitation. Would you be willing to read a book? And I set the context. So obviously the books that I recommend are always Sydney Banks books. There are two books, absolute favorite. I offer The Second Chance by Sydney Banks or The Enlightened Gardener. It depends. It will. My intuition will tell me which one they might go for. Sometimes I might also mention Michael Neill's book, The Inside Out Revolution. If someone feels that, oh, I don't want to go, I'm not spiritual or I'm an atheist, I might say, okay, Michael Neill's book then. However, I always give someone a choice. And this lady, I give the context of why I wanted to read The Second Chance. The context, I think, is very important rather than just read this book. She got it. And she thanked me, and then I saw her next in 3 months' time. She looked like a different person. I had not done anything else. I had not asked her to apply the principles or anything. All I had done is reduce the medication just a little bit. And then I gave her the context. I gave her hope, obviously, in my consultation, sharing a little bit about the principles, but not saying I'm sharing principles. And I asked her to read the Second Chance book. She came back, her nails were painted, her face was calmer, she seemed happy. And she told me about some of the things that happened to her where she felt more aligned with her mother had passed away, she had been bereaving that, but she felt that there was a deeper sense of connection with her mom. And she also felt so much better. Now, this is a very quick illustration of what can happen. And the reason I saw her in 3 months was obviously for the waiting list and everything in the NHS. But it's really interesting that all she did was she did not even apply it. She was curious. She was open to new learning. And something had shifted for her in really like reading the book from a perspective that this is going to change my life. So that belief that there's something deeper for me to see. I know a little bit because I have been listening to this podcast with Shami and I hear about the principles. I've looked into it, but I'm not sure. So some of the listeners might be in that category. But I say that keep looking in this direction because I know of so many people, thousands of people, working with different practitioners and my own patients and my clients. If they are open and they allow them, so they're not looking for a quick fix, they're doing all the things they need to do in terms of lifestyle medicine, integrative medicine, and they're really looking into like, let me see how I can be a better version of myself and are open, things to happen, shifts to happen.
That's incredible. That's incredible. When she shared the journey with you, visibly you could see and how she was communicating. Was there anything that she mentioned that she was a realization for her?
Yeah. She kept saying in the book, I think it was Jonathan, the wise man, he kept saying there's a difference between seeing, small SEEING, and seeing, capital C, seeing, and also hearing as a small hearing and hearing. And she said, Dr. Bora, I could really hear. I could really see. She kept saying that. She said, I don't know how else to say this, but I really heard. And it just like, I could feel the energy, the way she said it, because that's the insight we're talking about. when something shifts for people, no matter what approach you are exploring, whether it's someone like Eckhart Tolle or Sadhguru, or you are looking into the principles, you are looking at anything, when you have a huge shift, a transformation, is not because of the intervention as such, is because you had a sight from within. You had an aha moment. You had an awakening. That's what happened to her. She said, I saw. That meant that she saw something deeper. And that was so powerful.
Amazing, amazing. And for me, I just want to share a personal story. When I was learning about the three principles and via podcasts, actually, and then bought the books, various books, I suddenly realized how many stories I was creating in my mind. And I go, oh, Shami, that's another story. That's another story. And it was a story maybe of future fear or sort of being stuck on that past and then creating a future fear. And it's amazing how we're just amazing directors in our own mind. We're creating fantastic movies and we can get really caught up in that story. So I get what you're saying about that aha moment, because it was a massive aha moment for me to go, hold on a sec, that's just another story. That's the lens I'm seeing, the world I'm seeing through a lens, and I can change that and see it through a different lens. And it's really interesting because now I'm so much more aware of how people interpret the world. And you can interpret the world one way of just pain and exhaustion and negativity, or you can actually see it in a completely different light. And that actually translates to so many aspects of life, whether it's work or relationships or wealth or finances. It's really interesting how you interpret life. It's not just one size fits all at all.
Yeah, absolutely. Agree with you.
Amazing, amazing. So moving on, further going deeper down into the three principles, it's really interesting. She found it very quick. I call it 3 months, actually quite quick, to make that massive transformation, especially when she was on a cocktail. Do you have other stories to share where it can take a bit of time to just understand and implement and see change?
Yeah. So I have been working with someone with psychosis now for a year. He was part of my group program, and then he also did one-to-one. And he's a really amazing person. And he gets it at a level, and then it is getting deeper and deeper. He just loves Sydney Banks' book. He also loved other books, and he gets it and he loses it. And this is a guy with psychosis. And we know that this is fascinating. That I see a huge improvement in him in terms of his reactions have reduced. Like in the past, whenever he reacted because of the internal voices, again, that's interesting. Like, how do you hear voices? What is the three principles mechanism? Because the mind is a trickster, that we hear our own thoughts in the form of voices. It's like we have got the special effects department in the brain, and it feels like we hear all this multitude of voices, but they are all the illusion of the mind. So anyway, you can imagine that someone with trauma, someone with long history of difficulties and being a certain way for a long time, it's not easy, right? And he has seen something, and every time I have conversation with him, he sees something deeper. So it is taking him time. And I think it's a wonderful journey, because initially his reaction times would be longer, and the consequences also would be very detrimental. In the past, like he would, react so badly that, police had to be called and so on and so forth. So, and then there are learnings. We look at the learnings and how the mind works. And I need to be very gentle with him. And he enjoys the conversations. What's happening is that I know that sometimes we can see something very quickly, and he's also on medication. So that's other thing that we are looking at, the deprescribing bit. But there is something about not rushing insights. You can't rush insights. He's a typical example. He's seeing something, and every moment that life offers us is an opportunity to go deeper. So I'm seeing with him that although one might say, but he still reacts. Come on, I react. And I know my reaction time has gone down. I know that how I used to react in the past, and my behavior has definitely changed. So it's the same for everyone, whether you have got psychosis or you are a professional. And this is something about that you might see some breakthroughs, and there's some bits where we have blind spots. It might take you a little bit longer.
Absolutely. I love that piece of advice. It's a journey, an absolute journey. Ronnie, I'd love to move on. If you can share with our audience 3 tips for mental health self-care. I know you've written a couple of books and you've given lots of talks, but what would you say the top 3 tips would be if someone's struggling through one of life's hardships?
That's a beautiful question. I think I might have mentioned some already. The first one I would say is understand that we have got this gift of the 3 principles, this mystical paintbrush. When you hear thought in the principles world, it is not my thinking, your thinking. It's this spiritual gift. It's this beautiful gift we have been given right at birth time. It never leaves us, even when we are going through hardships. And don't freak out because you are painting a very negative picture at the moment. It's just because that your consciousness level is low. So the first one is remember that it is not so much of doing, it's more about being and being aware that you are gifted this mystical paintbrush. Okay. The second one I would say is that if I were to give a tip, it would be don't believe your thinking. We all believe our thinking. And when we have a vested interest in our thinking, that's when we go down that rabbit hole and we really suffer. When we are suffering, that's because we are really, let me put it this way. There's a quote that says, we don't experience suffering. We suffer our experiencing. This is mind blowing. Yeah. Yeah. We suffer our experiencing. So if we were to allow ourselves to experience anything we experience and not have to make it mean something, not resist it, not beat ourselves up about it, not suffer because of it, that itself will change our mental state. That itself will help us bounce back and experience more resilience from the inside out. So that would be my second one. And the final third one is remember this ladder of consciousness. Okay. Imagine that we all are going up and down a ladder of consciousness several times a day. Okay. And sometimes we go down the ladder of consciousness and we feel stuck in the mud. And say, oh my goodness, I'm stuck here. And that could be despair, that could be anxiety, that could be low mood, you name it, or frustration, anger, anything. From time to time, we all go down the ladder of consciousness. And what happens is, it's not about the doing, it's about remembering, like, oops, I got stuck here. And not like beating ourselves up for getting stuck in the mud, but realizing that as we start to use the mystical paintbrush appropriately for how we are meant to be using it for us, work for us rather than against us, what you'll find is in our own time, we do climb up the ladder of consciousness and then we feel lighter. We are not taking our thinking seriously. Down there, when we are stuck in the mud, we are really taking our thinking very, very seriously. But the moment we see, oh, I don't need to do this, and I just allow myself time and space and slow right down, not needing to climb up the ladder. It's like we are lifted up the ladder by this divine intelligence that we are part of. And then we see that, oh, it becomes simpler. We all have this up and down, this ladder of consciousness. You can call it the lift of consciousness. There's another metaphor. It's the same. It's only a metaphor. But we go up and down the lift of consciousness. When our consciousness rises by itself because we are not paying attention to our thinking, then we see more clearly. We have clarity. It's like when you go through this glass lifts, some posh hotels have this glass lifts outdoors. And then as you go up the lift, then you see that, initially you see nothing because you're in the basement, it's all dark. Then you see that you don't see anything. Then you see the ground floor, you see the cars and everything. And then you start seeing landscapes as you go higher and higher. So our mind is like that. As our mind goes up, not because of any help from us, because we are surrendering and say, okay, we know that we trust that the mind will go, our thinking will shift, our state of mind will shift. When we go in a higher level of consciousness, we know what to do. We know how to take care of ourselves. We know we can say no to that person or have more boundaries. We know that we can eat right. We know that we can stop playing on our gadgets or whatever. So we trust our wisdom more and more, and intuitively we do what's really going to work for us. I hope these 3 tips work.
Amazing and beautifully explained as well, Rani. Thank you so much for your time today. Before we leave you, where can people find you, even purchase your book? Is it available online?
Yes, so you can just go on Amazon, and even in Australia, I think you might just find an ebook, but go online. I'm on YouTube. I do lots of short videos around the topics. Yes, if you just look for Dr. Rani Bora on YouTube, you'll find me there. I'm active on LinkedIn, on Facebook. So if you just are interested, then you can just to Rani Bora. And I always say to people, if you have watched any videos or you have read my book and you've resonated, I would love to hear your insights, because then, and when you share it, you are also expressing it more and you're making it more believable and you're making it real. And then just by sharing it, you get something more. So that's my invitation to your listeners. Like, drop a message for me on YouTube or LinkedIn, or email me, because if you go to my website, if you just search my name, you'll also find my website. Its email is mail@doctorsranisuraj.com. You might want to put it in the show notes. I'll send
Definitely
you
do that.
But I would say there's so many ways to find me. But the one last thing I want to say to people who are listening is, people say they find hope for the first time when they come across the principles from inside, not because someone else is trying to instill hope. They feel hopeful. And I hope that listening to this conversation between Shami and me, you feel hopeful from inside as to what's possible for you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Rani.
Thank you, Shami. It's been amazing talking to you.
Remember that this is general advice only. Please see your healthcare professional for more information. So what's your take-home message today? Remember, it's all about progress and not perfection. And are you suffering from stress? Visit the Usawa Learning Hub on usawa.com.au for more resources on how to de-stress, re-energize, and reclaim your health. Enjoy the journey.